Boxingego here. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon on the top of your screen to get notified when the latest new content drops. 1. Do you want to know 7 reasons why Anthony Joshua will beat Wladimir Klitschko? If so, stay tuned to this video. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Back with my segment, 7 reasons. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. If you're new to the channel, what this is my thoughts, my upcoming fight predictions for big fights, and it's my series 7 reasons. Just my thoughts. April 29th, in front of 90,000 people, it goes down in London at the Wembley Arena. This is a great heavyweight fight between IBF champion Anthony Joshua and Wladimir Klitschko. Now, this was a hard prediction for me. I think this is truly a 50-50 fight. I think Joshua, even though I'm picking him to beat Klitschko, he definitely has to be safe and he has to be smart, because Klitschko has tricks and he's a veteran. So anytime you have that type of experience, it's something you're gonna have to approach in the right way. So this was not an easy prediction for me, but for the sake of 7 reasons, I gotta pick somebody. I could be very wrong, but I could also be very right. I'm picking Anthony Joshua, and I'm going to give you my 7 reasons why I believe Anthony Joshua will defeat Klitschko April 29th. Without further ado, this list is in no particular order. Let's get into the 7 reasons. Number 1, youth. Now, this reason is really self-explanatory. When you look at the two guys, clearly there's a big difference in age. Klitschko, he's in great shape, but the reality of it is he is 41 years old. He's a 41-year-old with 68 fights, and some of those have been stoppage losses. I think actually all but the Tyson Fury loss. I think every other loss that Klitschko has been by knockout, except for the Tyson Fury. And Joshua, he's this young, strong, hungry lion, age 27, and I think age, they say age ain't nothing but a number. It's possible, but to me, I think when you got two guys who are both hungry and both skilled, one with more experience, similar builds, they're both big, massive guys, 6'6" or whatnot. So I consider them like super heavyweights. And whose body would be more likely to break down? The person who's been fighting longer and who has 68 fights as a professional, not to mention whatever he did as an amateur, and he's 41 years old. And the thing is, Joshua has a style where when he starts going, it becomes a lot. And I think when it comes to the battle of attrition, if Klitschko doesn't control Joshua completely with the jab, then the older man is definitely going to feel that. And see, this is the thing when it comes to age in boxing. There are very few people where they can seemingly do things. Even the great Bernard Hopkins, age caught up to him. He had a long layoff versus Bernard Hopkins when he fought Sergey Kovalev. He lost, nearly got stopped in that final round, and then he took maybe 2 years off, came back and fought Joe Smith Jr. Now, I like Joe Smith Jr., but the reality of it from my stance is Joe Smith Jr. is not as skillful as Bernard Hopkins, yet he is a big light heavyweight. And with the age on Joe Smith Jr.'s size, he had momentum from the Andres Fanfara knockout. It didn't matter that he had less skill, because his youth and strength came into the picture, and Bernard Hopkins appeared older. And that's kind of what I see in this particular fight. If things aren't going Klitschko's way and things get in the trenches, whose body would you rely on? Pause. Would you rely on the youthful guy or the guy who's 41 years old, right? Number 2, sparring session. Now, some of you guys may not know this. Some of you guys may know this. For the diehard boxing fans, you do know this. The two have sparred in the past. Klitschko brought Joshua in to spar. Now, this was before Joshua was a champion. So the thing that I noticed, and this is just my personal opinion, what Eddie Hearn and Matchroom did with Joshua is they waited for the right opportunity, and they moved him along pretty slow, built his confidence up, and all of a sudden you had an unproven champion who carried that IBF strap. That person was Charles Martin. And Charles Martin, people were starting to talk about him a little bit. He had that fight with Glasgow, and it was for a vacant belt, a vacant IBF belt. And Glasgow was losing the fight. He wasn't getting thrashed completely, but he was definitely losing the fight to Charles Martin. And in that, he twisted up his knee or his leg, and he got injured, and he was unable to continue. Charles Martin then became the IBF champion of the world, heavyweight champion of the world. Eddie Hearn, I don't think, this is my opinion, I don't think Eddie Hearn would have put Joshua in with a Tyson Fury or Klitschko or Deontay Wilder at that moment. But since it was a guy like Charles Martin, who again wasn't really proven, he didn't have any title defenses, he won a belt through vacancy and kind of a freak accident, even though he was winning the fight. Glasgow was injured, you know what I mean? So you have to consider that. And they seized the opportunity. So fair play to Matchroom, Eddie Hearn, and Anthony Joshua. But that's my point. They got in him along slowly, seen that opportunity, and they're like, man, we could beat this dude and become an IBF. And Joshua did just that, knocking out Charles Martin, I believe, in the second round. He dropped him, I think, twice, and he became IBF champion of the world. Now, the reason I give you guys this backstory is the two have sparred, but since that point, a lot has changed because, again, when Klitschko sparred Joshua, he was a bit younger. He hadn't been a champion. But what they did, what Team Joshua did, Eddie Hearn did with Joshua after that IBF, is they kept him active. They kept feeding the monster, feeding the beast, putting him in fights where he's probably the favorite to win. He fought like, who do you fight? Like Gary Cornish. He fought Dominic Breazeale, an undefeated guy. But, I mean, for me, I had already seen flaws in Dominic Breazeale, so I knew Joshua would beat him. But it's good for his resume. It's good for his confidence. Dominic Breazeale is a guy who's taller than Joshua, who's undefeated. He was on the PBC side of things. And they kept feeding the troll. You know what I mean? It's like a troll on the bridge. They kept feeding the beast. And that was building Joshua's confidence. And most recently, he fought in December 10th, I believe. He fought against Eric Molina, which is technically Deontay Wilder, Chris Arreola leftovers. Both of those guys stopped Eric Molina. So, to me, Joshua has had time to grow, and especially grow in confidence from the sparring session, because he's been having his way with guys. He has all knockouts out of all the fights. He has all knockouts, and I think he's probably evolved since becoming a champion, and he put things to bed, like the Dillian White fight. The Dillian White fight was a tough fight. He got hurt in the fight, but he went on to stop Dillian White. And Dillian White's tough. If you watch the Derek Chisora, that was like a fight of the year, and Chisora was doing good in there, and it showed you how tough both of them were. And Joshua just taking those fights, the Gary Cornish, the Eric Molina, the Dillian White, avenging that, because Dillian White beat him as an amateur and knocked him down and had a lot of shit to talk leading up to the fight. So I think all of that since the sparring has helped Joshua in the confidence department, and I think he's probably a different fighter. So from Klitschko's perspective, I think Klitschko's looking like, I seen some flaws in him when we sparred. I know I could beat this kid, but I think the kid has evolved. But as far as Joshua, he might have noticed something, because the thing is, this is a fight where both fighters are going to get a pretty penny. They're going to make good money in this particular fight. But to me, this wasn't a fight that Joshua absolutely had to take. And he probably seen something in sparring, plus knowing that he's advanced and his confidence has grown and he's a champion now. He avenged the amateur loss to Dillian White and these types of things, where he really feels confident that he can beat Klitschko, right? But for Klitschko, it might be a little bit different, because he fought a pre-champion Anthony Joshua. So the flaws he had at that time may not necessarily be there still. You know what I mean? Here's another example using Joshua. According to David Price said he knocked Joshua out in sparring. But you got to look at it. Joshua was either just turning pro or still an amateur. And David Price, this was when he was a pro, and he was undefeated probably when he sparred Joshua. So if anybody with any sense were to look at it now, I would say Anthony Joshua would probably blow through David Price at this point. I mean, David Price is getting knocked out. He doesn't look like he can take a punch. You know what I mean? He's getting knocked out by Erkan Tepper, who I think failed a drug test, but he got knocked out after that. You know what I'm saying? He keeps getting knocked out, Tony Thompson. So things change, and that's my whole point with the sparring session, is I think Joshua has evolved and things are different. Like I said, David Price, at a point in time, and Joshua admits it, he knocked out Joshua, right, in sparring. But you fast forward some years later, is there anyone that really believes that David Price would knock him out in a pro fight? You know what I mean? I think Joshua has ultimately evolved, and I think he's definitely evolved from when Klitschko sparred him. And if you remember the reports, I've been covering boxing for a while. If you remember the reports, Klitschko had nothing but praise. Just Google it. Google the Klitschko-Joshua sparring. He was praising Joshua back then, and to me, Joshua is better now, if you guys get my point. He was praising Joshua like, oh yeah, this kid would be a champion, and he was saying good things. Now they're sworn enemies or foes or whatnot, but at that time, when he brought him in for sparring, he was probably trying to size him up and stuff like that. But I really, truly think Joshua has had time to grow his confidence and just evolve as a fighter, pick up different things, get some rounds in. Those things are important. Klitschko has 68 fights, so he has a ton of rounds in. Number 3, this is a big one, inactivity timing. Again, this timing is easy. It kind of goes back to what I was saying. The timing, I think Joshua is starting to peak a bit. Like his confidence is growing, and a major reason why I picked Anthony Joshua is because Anthony Joshua has been far more active, and Klitschko has not fought since November 2015. And that 2015 fight, he fought twice. He fought Bryant Jennings, he looked good in that fight, and then he fought Tyson Fury, didn't look good in that fight, and that was his last fight, I believe, November 2015. Right now it's 2017. So we have a 41-year-old man who's been inactive and hasn't fought in over a year. So again, when I talk about the age and stuff like that, that's when you could see remnants and reminders of your age and how old you are. It's not easy to come back after long dry spells of inactivity and be perfectly fine with no fights. Klitschko's not taking any tune-up. He's going straight at the young, hungry lion, and I think that's going to hurt him in this particular fight. Even great technical fighters, to me, I think Mikey Garcia is a very good fighter. He's a technical fighter and definitely one of the top lightweights, but he came back after a 2-year plus layoff dealing with the lawsuit, trying to get out of his top rank contract, and he fought Elias Rojas, who wasn't even a 140 pounder. He fought him, I believe, at 140 plus pounds, and Mikey Garcia, he was losing some of those early rounds, and this wasn't a big name or big threat. He ended up stopping Rojas, but my point is the ring rust showed up, and he's younger than Klitschko. There was some ring rust, and then you look at him, he had a quick turnaround, and then he knocked out Dejan Zlaticanin in his next fight, right? But if he would have came back immediately and went at the WBC champion Dejan Zlaticanin, who knows? Because Zlaticanin has a 90% knockout ratio. You know what I mean? But it was smart to have that tune-up fight. Klitschko's not doing that. Klitschko had a long dry spell of inactivity and coming off of a loss, and he's jumping right into the fire. So, I mean, I give him props for it, but I don't know if it's the smartest move with no type of tune-up at age 41. In at number 4, power. Now, both guys clearly have power. Klitschko has 68 fights, and he has almost an 80% knockout ratio. So he clearly has power. But I think the way they deliver the power is a little bit different. I think Joshua's just overall more athletic, and he'll muscle you around and impose his power. One of the biggest criticisms that a lot of people have for Klitschko is that he's boring and they don't really fancy his style of fight, right? Joshua's the opposite. He looks the part in terms of he looks like a He-Man muscle-bound action figure, and then he's also aggressive. Now, obviously, you have to respect Klitschko, and I fully expect him to be smart in those early rounds, because you don't want to walk into something And I mean, usually you get this at elite level fights with top guys. You really get people who are respectful, you know what I mean? And at least in the round one and stuff like that, fill out rounds. And I think they deliver power different. They're both powerful guys, but I think Joshua, he probably takes more risks with his power and puts together more combinations. And I think that could play a huge key, because Klitschko, he's been knocked out before, and some of the guys that knocked him out, I mean, I know it's the heavyweight division, one punch can change everything, but I don't know if they have Joshua power. I think Joshua is a really strong kid, and he has debilitating power. So single shots could change the whole scope. I mean, the way Charles Martin, I mean, you could tell body language. If you watch enough boxing, you see the body language. Some guys that get hit by Joshua, they don't look right to me. Like Charles Martin, he looked kind of baffled, like he didn't know, like he was there, but he wasn't. You know what I mean? Eric Molina, he said all this stuff before the fight, and Joshua just walked down and started bombing on him, and he just like kind of covered up. He was trying to do some Joe Frazier type of defense or whatever he was trying to do, and he was letting Joshua wail on him. So I overall think Joshua probably takes more risks with his power, and he has pretty good explosive speed. He does a lot of like core and explosive exercises to deliver that power a bit faster than Klitschko. In at number 5, AJ Hunger / Momentum. Now this one's pretty self-explanatory as well. I think just Joshua, he has, like I was saying earlier, he has the confidence. He feels this is his time. No one's going to take it away from him. And he has momentum going into this Klitschko fight. He knows what's at stake. He sparred Klitschko in the past. And obviously both fighters, they took the fight so they think they could beat each other. But I just think with the activity and everything considered, I think Joshua, this is kind of more his time. They're also talking about future fights with Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder or Luis Ortiz. So I think he's going to take this fight serious in terms of training camp and just kind of put a statement on, like, out with the old, in with the new type of attitude. And I just overall think it's more of Joshua's time, and I think he's overall hungrier. In at number 6, volume of punches. Now this is a big one. If you guys have studied Klitschko like I have and watched his career, you'll remember the late great Emanuel Stewart. He was the trainer of Klitschko before he passed away. And shout out to the Kronk Gym, shout out to Detroit. And one fight I remember particularly was Klitschko versus Fast Eddie Chambers. And Eddie Chambers is not as anywhere, I met him, you know what I mean? He was at, what fight with Berto Ortiz? He's nowhere as near as big as, he's actually, I think he went back to cruiserweight, to be honest. But anyway, he's not nearly as big as a guy like Anthony Joshua, right? And in the fight, you heard Emanuel Stewart, he's trained heavyweights like Lennox Lewis before. He's trained a ton of people, Adonis Stevenson. So very versed, very knowledgeable guy when he was training. And Emanuel Stewart, he was chewing out Klitschko for not letting his hands go and not throwing enough volume of punches. And again, to me, the thing is, Klitschko has power, but you also have to get that respect and throw a certain amount of punches, right? And then what I noticed with Klitschko is he seems to like things his way. And I know that sounds cliche, because what boxer wouldn't like things that are going their way? But it's really not, because there's guys like Floyd Mayweather that no matter what, even if things aren't going their way, they can make those proper adjustments. And the thing I noticed with Klitschko is he just doesn't really, especially if he's in there with somebody who is equal in size, if not bigger, like Tyson Fury, I don't really feel like he lets his hands go, right? And that to me is going to be a problem, because you're going to have to, this big ox / heavyweight, you're going to have to find a way to deter him and stop him from trying to walk you down, land his power shots. And Klitschko has a very good jab, but Joshua has a very good technique. He does things technically well. I think he's more explosive with his power and his speed. And I just really see that being a problem for Klitschko. not letting his hands go. Because you look at the Tyson Fury fight, and obviously that's one of Klitschko's worst performances in recent memory. But what do they say? You're only as good as your last performance. And I was not impressed at all by Klitschko in that fight. And that's going to lead me to my 7th point. But I simply wasn't impressed with what Klitschko did. I wasn't even too impressed. At first, I was impressed with Tyson Fury. I mean, I take nothing away. He got it done. First man to beat Klitschko in nearly a decade. Props to that. But that fight in general didn't impress me. I don't think either guy looked sensational, you know what I'm saying? It's not a fight I like watch over and over, like an all-time classic like Pacquiao and Marquez or something. But Tyson Fury, he rightfully won. He did what he had to do to win. I liked his early feinting, but one of the biggest complaints that to me what made that fight slow pace is because neither of them, they threw like an all-time low combined amount of punches for a heavyweight fight, and I just don't see that cutting it with a guy like Joshua, because you're gonna have to find a way to discourage him. And if you're not putting your hands together, like Emmanuel Stewart was saying, versus Eddie Chambers, and you were actually a little bit younger then what are you gonna do when there's a guy who's bigger, who's coming for you, who's technically solid, who has momentum, and he's trying to walk you down, and his power is probably more, it's gonna affect you more than an Eddie Chambers, who's again not the biggest puncher or even the biggest heavyweight. So I think the volume of punches that Klitschko lacks, like he doesn't throw too many punches, I think that's kind of going to be one of the things that will hurt him. That's why I want to see like a Deontay Wilder versus Joshua, because from what I've seen, you can say whatever you want about Wilder, but he throws punches. Like he's not going to lack punch count, especially if he gets you hurt. He's going to really throw punches, haymakers, you know what I mean? So Klitschko, I don't know. And again, Emmanuel Stewart, he pointed that out in the Eddie Chambers fight, but I've seen it in other Klitschko fights. So I just don't know if he's going to be able to throw enough punches at his age, advanced age and whatnot, put enough combinations together to really discourage Joshua. Because I mean, Joshua seems like he's in shape. He's definitely not invincible. He got David Price said he knocked him out or knocked him down in sparring. Dillian White knocked him down in amateurs. As the pro game, he got stunned by Dillian White. I think it was in the 2nd round, maybe the 3rd. So Joshua, he definitely has to be wary of Klitschko's power. But I think it's just dangerous if Klitschko's not throwing enough punches. I really see that. And the other thing is, unless you knock him out, who's a pretty big dude, pretty in shape dude, unless you knock him out with a single shot, he's still going to be dangerous. Because even if you rattle him and buzz him, if he counters you with something, then he could Marquez you like Marquez did to Pacquiao. So I think it's going to be dangerous. And I haven't really seen that killer instinct with Klitschko with someone who's about his size. And that leads me to my final 7th reason why I believe Anthony Joshua will beat Klitschko. Klitschko championship adjustments, or champion adjustments. Now, what I mean by this is, again, you're only as good as your last performance. And to me, Klitschko lacks adjustments as a champion. Like, when I watched the Tyson Fury fight, he did not fight, to me, as a fighter who was worried about losing their title after nearly a 10-year reign. And that worries me, because I see guys who are trying to protect their undefeated record, or literally just simply don't want to lose, and they'll almost go for broke. I didn't really ever get that with Tyson Fury. I think he did maybe in the last 3 rounds or something, but it was a little bit too late at that point. Tyson Fury had too many rounds in the can, and it was too little too late. So the fact that Klitschko lacks those championship adjustments, and he seemingly had no plan B, that worries me, because it makes me wonder, for your 10-year reign, was there just no heavyweights that were really at that elite level, or were you really that skillful where no one could beat you? And I think it might have been a little bit of both, because again, I've seen all fighters from Pacquiao to Mayweather, known elite level fighters, they have to make some adjustments. I mean, look at Pacquiao. Pacquiao, after being knocked out from Marquez, he boxes a bit more. You know what I mean? He's not quite as reckless. That in itself is an adjustment. because he's never been knocked out again since that point, right? He's boxing guys more. The way he fought Brandon Rios, smart. He outboxed him. That was his first fight coming back off of a career-long layoff and being knocked out by Marquez. He boxed more, right? Floyd Mayweather, king of adjustments. He made adjustments when Cotto was using a good jab, a bigger Cotto. He made adjustments in the Maidana fight and even in the Maidana rematch. He made adjustments in the Zab Judah fight. I thought Zab Judah was beating him to the punch and probably had more explosive speed, and he made those adjustments. Started jabbing to the solar plex, to the stomach, slowed Zab down. Knew if he took Zab past 4 or 5 rounds, Zab would probably fatigue, start getting frustrated, things of that sort. So to see Klitschko lack adjustments in a fight with Tyson Fury, and I'm not taking anything away from Tyson Fury. He had a good game plan early, feinting and things like that. I don't like to see that from a champion, because to me, what is he going to do if he's in there with this young, strong Joshua and things aren't going his way? You know what I mean? It just, to me, it doesn't make sense. Now, just kind of to add on to the adjustments, honorable mention type of reason is Klitschko, the way he fights since being knocked out is smart. He's taller than a lot of his opponents that he did defeat, and it's no strange occurrence to me. It's no surprise to me that the first time you fought someone of equal size or greater, that's the fight you lost. You know what I mean? Tyson Fury's a big dude. What is he, 6'9"? And to me, that's a problem, because if you really look back, like Manuel Char, Chris Areola, the Alexander Lepai, Kubrat Pulev, Eddie Chambers, Alexander Povetkin, during that 10-year run almost all of those guys were significantly smaller. Like you look at the weigh-ins, and Klitschko looks presentably bigger. Like you could see an inherent difference. Maybe, I mean, he has a lot of fights, so maybe there's someone who was of equal size, but were they of equal note? Did they have equal power? Did they have like an 80% knockout ratio and were his height? You know what I mean? And I can't really think of anybody that did. I'm talking about like a Lennox Lewis type. Your brother fought Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis, I met him in Vegas. Shout out to the bad man, Lennox Lewis, right? And he's a big dude. He's like 6'5", big build, and this is an older Lennox Lewis, you know what I mean? Not him in his prime. Great jab, things like that. A guy who will hurt you. He knocked out Tyson, Shannon Briggs, David Tua beat all these guys. So that's what I'm talking about. A Lennox Lewis type of person. And I really don't remember many people that Klitschko fought in the last few years, like Bryant Jennings. These guys are, I know Bryant Jennings. These guys are all considerably smaller than Klitschko. So that style has been perfected, and it works a lot better with guys who are smaller than you, like Alexander Povetkin, who's like, I don't know, 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", because Klitschko, he does little subtle things. Some people say it's dirty. Sometimes in the clinch, he'll clinch you, and he'll like muscle you around, lean his body weight on you, things like that. It's much harder to do when someone's equal strength, your size, and or stronger and or bigger. You know what I mean? You can't lean your body weight. You know what I mean? You might get knocked out trying to clinch and you have one hand free or something. You just don't know. And it's harder to muscle around, I mean, and lean your weight and do all those things. Like you watch the Povetkin fight. Klitschko, he was like, they say wrestling or whatever with Povetkin, where he's leaning his body weight on. That's taxing on a fighter who may not even weigh as much as you. If the fighter, I don't know exact weights off the top of my head, but let's say Alexander Povetkin was 230, 225, 228, somewhere around there, and Klitschko's weighing 242, 6'6", taller than you, big, strong dude, and he's laying his weight on you. But again, that becomes increasingly hard when your opponent is 6'6" and weighs just as much as you, or rehydrates just as much as you and or more. That's why in the Tyson Fury, he has so much problems, because Fury's big. He's not going to allow you to just clinch him and just hold him and muscle him. He's too big. He's bigger than you. You know what I mean? And I think that's going to be a common problem. Joshua is too strong for you to clinch. And if your punch output's not enough to stop him, and you don't really rock him with the shot, then I just really see Joshua finding a home. And as the confidence grows, I just see Joshua getting more confident as the rounds go on. And ultimately, I'm picking Joshua by like a mid to late stoppage. Like I want to say round 7 through 9. I see Joshua stopping Klitschko and cementing his championship status. That's how I see it. I could be wrong. I could be right. Those are my 7 reasons why I believe Anthony Joshua will beat Klitschko. But this is no disrespect, no shade to Klitschko. If he proves me wrong, he proves me wrong. I'll give him his props. Maybe Joshua isn't ready, but that's just how I see it. I see Joshua defeating Klitschko. I just think it's ultimately to run it back. I think it's his time. I think he has strength, and I think he has the right mindset where he's bounced back from amateur losses, gold medal. He sparred Klitschko. He has confidence. He's the champion. He knows there's big opportunities with a Wilder fight or anything. He just has to get past Klitschko. So I think that's going to motivate him to try to get to the next level and show off and show out. And I like Joshua's composure for his age and really only being a pro a couple years and recently kind of being a champion. He seems pretty chill, pretty composed, pretty disciplined, dedicated. Like he just likes to have a good time and doesn't really do a lot of barking, and he shows up. And I think he's going to pile on that in the fight, and I think it's going to ultimately discourage Klitschko, who didn't really show great adjustments in his last fight over a year ago with another big man. And this time Joshua's hitting harder than Tyson Fury. So I think that's going to be the difference maker why Tyson Fury went the distance. Tyson Fury can box, but I don't think he has the power of Joshua. And I think it's evident by Joshua's 100% knockout ratio as a champion. And you can say, oh, he was fighting certain people, but again, you don't just knock out everybody unless you have some type of power. And he's knocked out guys like Charles Martin. He was undefeated, able-bodied. Dominic Brazil, taller, undefeated, has an amateur background. He went to the Olympics. You know what I mean? So if you're knocking out all these people, then your power has to be real. So I'm picking Joshua to defeat Klitschko. We'll see. Again, I could be very wrong, but I could also be very right. Let me know what you guys think. Drop it in the comment section. Make sure you share the video, like the video. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxingego, the future of boxing.